Namaskar. Today we are going to discuss about the disaster response mechanism. In few of the disasters, like past disasters, when we recall Orissa super cyclone or Chamoli earthquake or Jabalpur earthquake, Latur earthquake, Orissa super cyclone, Gujarat Kandla cyclone, Gujarat earthquake, or we can talk about this tsunami, we find there are certain problems about our emergency response. So today let us see that what are the problems we come across once we are dealing with a disaster in terms of responses, and then what are the basic features that we have to take into account for disaster response. Let us see the problems. Why the responses are not so clear to us, and why we don't give 100% to our capabilities once the disaster is responded. Maybe the reasons are like our hazard vulnerability and risk assessment is not very clear, so we don't anticipate while planning itself that what will be the criticality of a disaster and what type of resources, what type of preparedness, what type of capacity building we need to have for combating with a disaster situation. Then appropriate plan is not in place. What type of plans we require to have? At present, once we are talking about disaster response, we talk for a week time, that week time we require for disaster response. But no, the current concept of disaster response, it is not in days, it is in hours, that within how many short or limited hours we require to normalize the situation, how better and how fast, how efficient, how effective we can do the disaster response in a short time. What resources are available? We have seen in 2005 lot many places they were flooded. In 2006 also Maharashtra, many of the places were flooded, and during the floods we were finding that resources are required but resources are not available. So this also creates constraint in disaster responding. Command control organization is not formatted. Who is reporting to whom? At present, if you see the government system, only one or two departments are very active and proactive, and other departments are not knowing about their roles and responsibilities. Even government is not knowing how to tie up with the non-government organizations. Non-government organizations are ready to provide the support, ready to provide all the resources, but government doesn't know how to put and how to channelize those resources to the victims. Maybe communication warning systems are not thorough, and it is not communicated from top to down, left to right, or in the different streams how it has to be communicated. Search and rescue teams are not available. These are the problems, because many of the places, like if you see Rajasthan, where the flood, there was a massive flood in 2006, and because of those floods, because those areas were never been flooded in 100 years of time, but nobody was there to look after for watermanship and search and rescue operations during the floodings. Information management is not very clear. Whom to be informed? Even the media, dealing with the media is not clear to our response agencies and NGOs. That is also required to be very clear to the stakeholders and the response bodies. Working with the co-opting agencies. Maybe our system is very clear, top to down approach, bottom to up approach, but lateral approach is not very clear to us. Maybe 10 departments are working for disaster response. They are very particular about communicating, commanding, controlling, and sending the compliance on a vertical basis. But maybe we require revenue department, police department, PWD departments together. They have to work, and in all levels they require some sort of information to be exchanged, but it is not happening. Relief and rehabilitation. This is also an important issue, and ethics of relief, ethics of rehabilitation is also required to be understood by everybody. Working with the co-opting agencies, inter and intra-departmental coordination and functioning. How we define inter-department and intra-department? Maybe for a simple one function of disaster response, like it might be warning communication and evacuation. For example, we say search and rescue operations, where not only one department, that is the revenue department, is required. Maybe we need to look for the support of police department, local community. Maybe we require to have certain inputs from Zilla Parishad. So whether we have some certain interdepartmental coordination and functioning in a particular department, how different components, different sections, different units are required to intercorrelate, talk about it, coordinate the activity. So that is also very, very important. What are the response functions? Creation of response mechanism in the organization. It starts from the national level. It comes to the state level, district level, might be at the ministerial level, might be a state department level. Creation of a specialized force and teams. Now, Government of India has taken initiatives, and all paramilitary forces, they have been pooled together. The speciality of those paramilitary forces like CRPF, SRPF, ITBP and IDDRR and other department. So these four paramilitary forces, they have been pooled together. Specialities has been extracted, and Government of India has formed National Disaster Response Force, NDRF. And this type of teams are located strategically in all different 4 zones, and their basic objective is to do all the response what we are looking from the army, that the paramilitary force NDRF that can perform. And in the peacetime, they can do the capacity building practices, and once the disaster takes place, they are the responders to it. Then coordination between the government and non-government stakeholders, including the community. Creation of response system and procedure, information management system. At present, I can say that our information management system is not so good. It requires a lot of changes, and now IT sector, IT is very much proving its role, and we can use the IT, we can use space technology, we can use computers. These things can be used, they can be joined together, and all the data, all the resources, all the hazards, all the profile of the community, that we can make it structured in the information management system. We need to have the communication system, so that earlier to the disasters which can be communicated, which can be warned, a forecasting can be done, those informations we can communicate to the vulnerable people, victims, and so that the necessary actions can be taken advance to the disaster comes. Warning system, suppose the warning has been communicated from the top, or it has been communicated from the bottom to up, how best we can provide and we can disseminate that particular information on time to the right people. Procedures to report, respond, prepare, readiness, coordinate and develop. So these are basically how we are transferring the information from one level to other level. We are documenting it, and we are just coordinating and just passing the information to the responders. Management functions related to all response functions, maybe the planning, direction, controlling, correcting, creating and accounting. If you see the response structure of the whole Government of India, it starts from the Ministry of Home Affairs, because the Ministry of Home Affairs is the nodal agency, nodal ministry for looking after all the activities of disaster management, and Government of India has established National Disaster Management Authority, which is supported by Government of India. They are the apex bodies, and they are looking at from the national level about the disaster response. It goes down to the state authority, further it goes to the district authority, taluka level, and then it goes to the village level. If you see, once we are talking about the warning agencies, they are working at the national level, the state level, they are working at the taluka level, state, village, district level, and also The co-opting agencies are also working at the national level, state level and district level. There are certain NGOs who are working at the local level. There are certain NGOs who are working at taluka, district level. Many of the NGOs are working from the state level, and many of the national NGOs, international NGOs are there who are working for it. We have the response forces at the national level, state level, district level, even that village level we have the response forces, and if we don't have in a particular place, then we require to develop such type of capabilities among the stakeholders. Response mechanism, you need to have interdepartmental responsibilities. Maybe for floods, not only the revenue department, not only the police department, but irrigation department also plays a major role. Water resource department, health department. So you require to fix up the responsibility of each department, and those responsibilities we have to ensure that they are not duplicated. So each department, they need to define with the very unique roles and responsibility. Based on that, they will be performing. Good initiatives have been taken by Government of India, and now the Ministry of National Disaster Management Authority, State Disaster Management Authority, they have been given the responsibility of defining the roles and responsibility of various departments, various levels of the department, and at the national level the ministries are required to take care of their disaster management. And this is the way, like all ministries, departments, they are supposed to streamline disaster management in the development process. Then coming to intra-department coordination, interdepartmental coordination, where various departments are working, and all departments, they need to coordinate at different level, vertically and also horizontally, so that each level they know who are the counterpart and whom to take the resources, what resources are required to be taken at the upside, lower side, maybe your left side or right side. So this particular thing has to be done. Creation of collective response body. Maybe search and rescue operations, we require the people from the community, we require the people from the revenue department, police department, health department, civil defense also. If you have, then those people also required to be taken into account, and then we collect it and we make a collective response body where there is no question of any department, there is no question of any hierarchy, but it's a functional requirement, functional response body. So that is also very, very important, and for response mechanism it is very much essential. Responsibility of each department, each position, and hierarchy for the response. Here each department should be defined with the very clear-cut responses and responsibilities, that what they need to do, when they need to do, whom they will be reporting, who will be reporting to them. So those things are required to be clear. What are the minimum standards of the response system? If you talk about the communication system, ensure 100% connectivity. They should be fail-proof, it should be seamless, so that if your general regular communication system cuts off, you have some sort of redundancy and you can rely on certain very, very reliable communication system. Now satellite phones are available, even the VSAT connectivity is there, through which you can have a ensured 100% connectivity. Establishing the redundancy, like in Maharashtra, if you see, I can cite the one example of Maharashtra where emergency operations center is there. The main emergency operations center, it is there in the Mantralaya in Mumbai, but standby redundant system is there in Yashoda, that is in Pune Administrative Training Institute. We have a very defined standby control room. So suppose something goes wrong with the main emergency operations center, the second will be in active phase, and it will, all the coordination and all the directions will be passed from the redundant one. Then technological system upgrades, all technology, whatever you have, that can be passed through this particular and you have to do that. Communication system should be such like that. Information system, dynamic database, decision support system and accounting. For effective disaster response, you need to have dynamic database. You can change online, because mostly what is happening, we have the database and database is updated after 6 months of time, but once the disaster comes, what is the reliability that, well, your database is accurate and whatever the resources you require to have, that you will be getting on time, that you have to look into. Then decision making system and accounting, how we define the decision minimum standards, how we can fix it up. You should have the database, you should have the IT backup support system, so that if in a control room the decision makers are sitting, policy makers are sitting, referring to that particular information, they can on spot take decisions. Accounting is also very important, because without accounting it is not possible to provide all the resources and the fundings and whatever money is required. So it also comes that all the expenditures which has been done for disaster response, that should be quite perfectly accounted. Warning system. Now warning system, lot of initiatives have been taken by Government of India, and the basic objective is that prior to adequate space can be provided, so that the people who are vulnerable, they can be evacuated from that particular place and they can be provided all the necessary facilities. And warning system should be such that if the information is coming from top, might be the national agency is providing the information that such and such time there is going to be cyclone in the area, so once it comes to the relief and rehabilitation department or disaster management department, it can be percolated, it can be transferred, it can be communicated to the district level, divisional level, or even the district and the village level. So this is the warning system at least we need to have. Response reporting and recording procedure, that we should be very clear, because still we are finding that we are not very good in response reporting or recording procedure. Warning procedure should be very clear. We need to have the logbook where you can really give that particular idea that at what time you receive the message from the reliable sources and how particularly that information has been passed on to the lower level or the upper level. Data collection, you require to collect the data, initial, periodical and situational report, because once the disaster has taken place, presently we don't go for initial, periodical and situational report. Once the disaster response is over, then we start doing the documentation. But once the disaster has taken place, you require to have the initial information, so that what has happened, where it has happened, and what type of problems are there, and what are the bottlenecks for providing the relief and rescue and relief. Those informations are coming under initial report. Then you come to the periodical report, where every 12 hours or every 24 hours you are giving a periodical report to the your higher ups or maybe to the media. And then comes to the situation report, where you give the situation, what has happened, how it has happened, what type of resources have been provided. And then comes to the work progress report, where work has been completed, how it is processing, how it is going ahead, what are the basic problems, what resources are required, that you can spell it out. Resource control report, maybe you require to deploy a lot of resources from outside or within the community, then that also you require to have a clear checkpoints, that what resources are required, how you have mobilized, how you require to demobilize to other affected areas. And executive orders, mostly it is for the government system, that how what is required to be done, how it is required to be done, so that comes under the executive orders. Event log, what action you have taken at what time, what date, that comes under the event logs. You need to have the records of injured, dead, displaced or people in the relief camps, property damage, what type of properties have been damaged, might be the private infrastructural property or relief distribution records. So these are the basic things we require to take into account about disaster response. So here today we discussed about the various aspects of disaster response. In fact, we looked at the problems encountered during the past emergencies, where we have seen lot of disasters in like Latur earthquake, Jabalpur earthquake, might be your Bombay floods, Pune floods, and Orissa super cyclone, and many of the problems we discussed about it. What are the basic problems we faced? What are the response functions? We discussed about it, how we can create the response system and the procedures. Then what is the response structure at the national level and how we are going down to the village level. A response mechanism like interdepartmental responsibility, interdepartmental coordination, interdepartmental adjustments, and responsibility of each department, how we can fix it up. What are the minimum standards of response systems? So these are the basic salient points of the disaster response has been discussed in this particular lecture. Thank you very much.